All right, Dave, I think it's time. Let's get this party started.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to be in here with you. It's been a while. I know I've been on the injured list a little bit.
Yes.
I've left you here to fend for yourself, but I heard you did a fantastic job. I can't say I actually watched them.
Big surprise.
But I heard you did your typical fantastic job, and probably nobody wants me back here.
Well, I don't know about that. We'll let the viewers judge at that. So welcome, everyone. For those who have not been here before, my name is Brian Hotzik.
I'm Dave Lamson.
We're here with NCSI. Today we're going to be talking about some very exciting stuff around Windows 11 migration and so forth. We'll kind of get into that a little bit later. Just a quick reminder, we are sponsored by Ivanti. They, kind of a lunch and learn kind of a thing, right? But you're sitting at your desk, maybe at home or at the office or whatever. So we've got the Grub Hub giving us our lunch perks today.
And we typically forget to order ours before these because we're in here prepping for everything. But I know you actually put in your order an incredibly healthy lunch.
Absolutely. I got
you want to share with the people?
New Year's resolution, trying to eat healthier and so forth. So I bet you didn't know that you can get Krispy Kreme donuts from as delivery as part of that. So just got the classic glaze. That's my preference. So go ahead.
Where are the rest of them?
What do you mean the rest of them? Oh, I went and passed them around the office.
Okay.
For the record, I tried to give some to the delivery driver, but he actually did say he was on.
All right. Well, I know at least one of those has my name on it.
Oof, yes, they are. The thing about Krispy Kreme is you got to eat it fresh, right?
You're a brave man eating it now in front of all these people, and sticky keyboards are in your future.
I see the sticky keyboards. If you didn't know, Dave came up with an absolute insane idea. It's been probably 2 years ago now? We did a webinar on risk sense, and we were talking about risky things, and so Dave made me eat hot wings during a presentation, which was actually very difficult, and one of the very few presentations I've actually cried during because of the incredibly spicy wings that I was forced to eat.
Yeah, you're only going to cry here because I don't think you grabbed any milk before we started.
That would have been a good idea.
Big mistake on your part. Well,
big mistake.
I'll get you a drink when we're talking. Sorry. So we're here to talk Windows 11 today and migrations. And I asked you before we started if you had an idea how many users have actually moved to Windows 11, especially in the corporate environments, and how many are still behind the times and using Windows 10 a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think you told me that. Well, you speak to it.
Well, I mean, that was my guess. I threw out there that I think it's still very low adoption, right? Maybe 30%, something like that. We have migrated, and we're kind of now under the gun, right? That end of life for Windows 10 has been announced for a while now. It's coming up in this October. Now, for those that are not aware, as kind of an offshoot from that conversation, Microsoft lets you buy additional years of patch management for that. But they even increased the price over the years because they really want to motivate you to get off of it. So, this happened with Windows 7. This happened with Windows XP as well. So we predict that's probably going to happen as well. So that's kind of a separate conversation on how do I keep on Windows 10. Just know that with Ivanti you can get that. You just have to pay the Microsoft tax and then buy a SKU from Ivanti and we can still rolling them out. But today's conversation is, well, how do I actually migrate over to Windows 11, right? And it's a little bit tricky this time because we've got some hardware requirements. Yeah. So Microsoft came out with what I would consider a very controversial opinion that requiring TPM chips. And there's a lot of gimmicks. There's a lot of tricks. There's a lot of ways to get away around this. And I can't predict the future, but I got a little bit of a crystal ball. I think they're going to cave quite a bit on this, to tell you the truth. When it really comes push to shove, I think they're going to give in and make it a lot easier to get around the TPM requirement. Right now, it requires some, a little bit of hacking and registry and PowerShell scripts and so forth to go past it. But my prediction is it'll get easier as we get closer to this.
Wait, you're telling me there's a hack? So if I want to, for my desktop at home that you helped me build, we could actually get around that and maybe move to Windows 11 so I can continue to use it there? Okay.
Yeah, because the requirement is mostly there for BitLocker, and most home users don't have BitLocker enabled on it, right? So in their enterprise, that's a different conversation, and hacking things is never a fantastic long-term support goal. But at a minimum, I think we're going to have some avenues of support. But again, that's a different conversation. Today, it's okay. I've decided I need to go down this path. What can I do, and what are some tools and strategies and so forth around figuring this out? So that's what we're going to do today.
Okay.
Sound like a plan?
Absolutely.
Okay, so as we're going through this, put some questions or comments in the chat. Also, if you have your, tell me where you're at in the progress. I don't know. I don't talk to every customer out there, so feel free to jump in there and say, hey, we're at 0% migrated. We're at 100% migrated. Give me some feedback on what's happening out there in the real world versus here we are in a little bubble of trying to understand where people are migrated and so forth. So let's go ahead and type that in the comments, and would love to see more about that. But we'll tackle any questions as they kind of come up.
Okay, and I'll be eating one of these while
you'll be eating
while you're doing the presentation.
Okay. Do we need to do a quick test? Okay. How many left is there? Everyone take count.
Just one.
We're going to bring this back up at the end of the conversation, and we're going to see how many Dave actually went into.
And Patrick put in a commentary that the TPM workaround still runs into a problem during some cumulative updates.
Yeah, there you go. So again, that's why a hack is never a fantastic idea to do. I always tell that to customers. It almost doesn't matter if it works. It matters what happens when I have to call support about this. That's probably much more important than can I get it to function, is can I get support on that.
Well, I guess you're going to help me build a new home computer.
I can do that, or just don't call support.
Yeah.
Or don't patch it. Hey, we got some terrible ideas rolling around there, but let's talk about how we can solve this. I think there's even some options for adding TPM, but I'm not 100% sure on exactly how that works. Okay, let's go dive into it. So let's have a conversation about some of the strategies and ideas we can have associated with that. I have a button here I'm going to press to make myself grow a little bit larger here. How about that? See? It's magic. All right, so what is Neurons for DEX? We're going to talk about bots, gathering our data, and then actually going and executing the upgrade. So hopefully by the end of today's conversation, I'm not going to give you a magic bullet. I apologize in advance. I'm not going to give you one thing and just push this button and, walk away, all your problems are going to be solved. No, this is a much more nuanced conversation. There's many ways to do it. There's probably 7 right ways and 5 wrong ways to do it. We're just going to talk strategy on this and how some Ivanti technologies can help out with that. So we're going to start the conversation with something called Neurons for DEX. Now, I apologize in advance for the customers that already own this product. I need to talk about it a little bit on what it is for those that don't own it, but I can run through that relatively quickly. So Neurons for DEX, that is a cloud-based endpoint software that we can install agents on our workstations. It supports Mac and PC as well, but obviously today we're talking about PC. And it is the evolution of what Ivanti's been doing for decades now. Those traditional endpoint management technologies that were usually on-premise. This is a migration up to the cloud. And there's some really fantastic features that you can get. I just put a screenshot here in the background. One of my favorites is like location services. That's something that we really struggled with in the past, understanding more about where the devices are and what their active status is. You can see kind of down here at the bottom, it talks about them being online. So I can understand if I'm connecting to them right now. So Neurons for DEX is that cloud-based endpoint management software. We're going to be using it and several of its components today as part of the conversation. Now, DEX is kind of a confusing thing, and on top of that, Neurons is a confusing thing. So let me break down what that means. Ivanti has a branding strategy around their products, and they're taking the word Neurons and they're applying it to many different products in their portfolio. So there isn't a product called Neurons, and you're going to hear many people call it that, but that's actually not the case. It's Neurons for something, right? And the something is the product. In this case, today we're talking about DEX, digital experience. We'll get into that, but you probably heard about some other things. Neurons for ITSM, Neurons for MDM, Neurons for ITAM, Neurons for RBVM, et cetera, et cetera. We have lots of other products that have that brand name. And when they say it means cloud, that's actually not technically true. There's Neurons for ITSM that exists on-premise. So it's mostly in the cloud, but again, think of it like a brand name instead of an actual product. Now, what is DEX? It's not just the nickname of my oldest son, Dexter, right? It's actually, it stands for something, right? It's digital experience. And what that actually means is we're trying to change the way that our users experience technology. And we can kind of go into a lot more detail on those in other places, but the concept is kind of this. We need to flip the script on how we interact with our users. We've got a real problem with a lot of headwinds that are going against us today. things like our users feel like we're holding them back now. If you kind of rewind the clock, call it 20 years, 25 years, something like that, we were the innovators. We were actually coming to our users and saying, I don't want you to use pen and paper anymore, things like this. I've got these really cool things called email, and we've got a website you're going to fill out this information. Let's not do it the old-fashioned way. We were dragging them into the future. The problem is that today's day and age, that consumerization of technology, I personally blame this thingy, the smartphone. It has made it so that they can access pretty advanced technology, incredibly easily, right? They can download an app in a fraction of a second, right? I go to the App Store, hit the button, bam, I'm doing something. I'm synchronizing my files. I'm doing VPN. What happens when they give us a call? First of all, if we respond to them, right, we say, well, you're not allowed to do that, or you can't do that, or, it takes us a month to go and install a piece of software on their computer. So they don't think we're the innovators anymore. And so we've got to flip that script to better understand their experience. So that's kind of the theory behind the name. And I don't think it's something you should just ignore. I think you got to start thinking about that because, I'm a little bit of a pessimist. Everyone that knows me kind of understands that. We've got these huge headwinds around this nonsense around AI. AI is extremely complicated. Large language models are incredibly fascinating, but that doesn't matter. All they hear is it's going to take away all the jobs, and hey, why does my technology not work? Can't we just go replace everyone with AI these days, right? They don't understand the nuance. We've got to be more on the forefront of helping our users. So that's why I like the concept of DEX. So there's a couple of different components inside of DEX that we're going to be talking about. Now, in reality, a Windows 10 to Windows 11 upgrade is not part of patch management. You can see kind of in the bottom left-hand corner over here somewhere, it says patch management. This is actually not a patch management exercise. Microsoft does not release it as a patch, even though, right, the kernel doesn't even really upgrade its version that much. It doesn't come back and actually say that it's the kernel version 11. It really is a glorified patch in my personal opinion, but we can't deliver it via those traditional mechanisms. Microsoft hasn't done that. We need to deliver it via a more of a traditional installer, ISO, things like that. However, it can be an in-place upgrade, and I feel like that's going to be the majority choice for most customers. It's just not that big of a change to require wiping out the hard drive, formatting, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. So what I'm going to show you today can be treated like kind of a patch, but needs to be, done outside of the patching ecosystem. But since it is pretty impactful, right? If you look at the changes to the interface, the time it takes, this is usually not something we can just do on a random, we patch on Thursday evenings, let's just randomly do it, and then they're going to wake up in the morning on Friday and it's a new operating system. We want to maybe interact with our user a little bit more, and that's what I'm going to be showing and talking about a little bit today. So I'm going to jump out of that really quick just so I can kind of show you that I'm logged in back over here into our Neurons for DEX environment. And again, it does lots of other cool things. We're not going to get into those details today, but remote control and inventory and patching and pushing out software and these really cool things called connectors where you can talk to other systems and so forth. So we've got some great videos on that on our YouTube page. If you haven't, we'll drop a link in the chat. I'll ask Dave to do that so that you can go and take a look at those other videos and explore that. But today we're just going to focus on the the 10 to 11 upgrade stuff. So we're going to be using several of these features. Okay, so what are we going to be doing here today? We're going to be using something called bots. Now, bots are one of my favorite forward-looking technologies here. This is something I didn't know I wanted this for the past 15 years until I saw it. And I said, holy cow, I really believe this is a big way that we are going to change the way that we interact with our systems. And bots can do a lot of different things. It's essentially a way to run some kind of series of actions. How did we do that 15 years ago, 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, even today? What was the answer to it? Most of us said, oh, well, I need to write a script, right? That was the answer. Back in the day, it was a batch file. Then we upgraded to PowerShell. Well, if you're anything like me, you can't rub 3 sticks together to write a script. It's just, that's not my culture. That's not who I am. I'm not a programmer. I'm a systems guy. I just cannot wrap my brain around the programming logic of scripts, and I'm very envious of the people that can. And so that was a big answer for decades in our industry. We'll write a script to go do something. Okay, what happens when someone writes it and it needs to change, right? How do I maintain that script? this is a way to do that same kind of idea. I'm going to take a series of actions, you can kind of see it laid out here, in a visual format that does not require programming logic. I don't have to go and write code in order to do this. I can step my way through a process. So bots can do a lot of other things. Again, we're going to be talking about Windows 11 today. But let me just show you a couple of example bots that we have here. Over on the left, you can go click on Neurons bots. What I like about it is you can have it show you some sample bots. If you hit this little create bot button right here, it's going to ask us, hey, there's to start from a template. So here under the template, look, we've got, how many are in here? 100 or so? And they do a bunch of different stuff, but they give you some great ideas. Oh yeah, let's take a look at one that installs Firefox extensions. Tell me about resetting Windows Update. What about doing a basic health check, or look for invalid certificates. I've done a couple of videos on this around you should be looking at your top 10 issues in your help desk, and you should be writing bots to solve them. Not the incredibly hard ones, not the, it took me 5 hours to solve it. We're talking about the more simplified ones, that low-hanging fruit. They're out of disk space, their service didn't start, things like that. So we've got lots of cool examples here. You don't feel like you have to start from scratch with a blank canvas. You can take one of these as, as an example and kind of run with it from there. Removed aid profiles, absolutely fantastic, right? Why are we having these profiles sit on machines that are not being used? I don't want to have to know how to do that from scratch. I can just hit this create button in here and say, remove aged profiles. You spell it correctly. You create a draft. Now it comes up and hey, it's got all this kind of great logic. I don't have to really understand. I just kind of follow my way through this and type in some information. Oh, they said 90 days in the sample. I don't want that. I want 200 days or something like that. So this gives me the ability to make a bot based on a existing template. So we're going to use those today as part of the exercise to talk about how we could potentially do it. And again, like I described, there is many ways to do this. There's not just one way. We're going to be talking through several different scenarios. So let's go talk about a couple of options that we have around doing that. So that's the concept of bots. Now, there's actually some precursor steps that we need to run to before that, right? And the idea behind that is, does every machine have the ability to run Windows 11? Dave just commented that his machine can't, right? We've got requirements, and it's not just technically TPM. It's a little bit more than that. So there's actually a PowerShell script that Microsoft has released called the hardware readiness, right? It shows up here at the top. That's the one. We're going to, when we put the recording of this up on our YouTube page, we'll make sure that the links show up down below. So if you're watching us on YouTube, just click these links down below. That'll take you to Microsoft's website, and you can take their script. There's no reason to start over from scratch, right? Take their script and either use it exactly as is, or use it as your base to tweak it from there. But the concept is, first, remember up here in our agenda, we said, I need to gather data. I need to understand what of my machines need to have the ability to run Windows 11, right? That is way early on in the process. You need to be doing that today, because if you've got to replace hardware, man, that's a big cycle of time and money and cost. We've got to plan for that in the future. So we run that hardware readiness.ps1. And so what we can do is we can create a bot that says, let's go and execute that script on the end machine, and we're going to look at the return code. And in that script, it even comes back pretty easily and tells us, hey, a return code, in this case of 0 for success. I'm standing in front of it, so you can't see that. But right there, that says, run the script. If it comes back with a 0, that's going to be a success as far as we're concerned. If it comes back with a 1, that's going to be a failure, right? So then what we can do is we can have the bot interpret that result. I'm going to show you this bot in a minute, but it kind of looks like this. It's going to create an environment variable with that value, and then I can use that for some decision-making capabilities later on. Now, there's also another feature in bots that just got released like 4 or 5 days ago, so we haven't gone through the process of testing it, so I can't validate whether it's going to function or not. But we can also go shove that into the registry. That might be a little bit different way to pull that information back up, but an environment variable is another way to do that. So let's go take a look at that bot. What would that look like in order to run? So I'm going to open up the readiness bot, and our bots have lots of cool functions like being able to have versions, so that as I manipulate it and change it, I can go back and run different versions and so forth. I can also execute it on whichever group of devices I want to. I can target a group, and this is going to come in handy when we actually go to execute the upgrade. We're going to need to know that, right? So, but this one is pretty benign in my opinion because it doesn't really do anything other than set an environment variable, right? So you shouldn't have to worry too much about it breaking anything. However, it's always great to test it on a small test scale to begin with. But here's the gist of it, right? Over here on the left-hand side, you can grab these different actions, querying different things, running different actions. There's a whole bunch of built-in ones. We're going to use some more custom ones for this around PowerShell because that's how we're going to be executing that command. So here you can see, let's run that PowerShell action. Notice we can run it as a system account, meaning we have full administrative rights, right? Let's run it with an admin account instead of someone who maybe has limited rights associated with the machine. So we're going to run to the system. Here is that script. Again, do not go and try and create this from scratch. Microsoft already did it. Just go steal it from them and tweak it if you need to. And if someone can read the PowerShell script and knows what all this is doing, obviously, like I said, it's slightly more complicated than just TPM, but this is the official Microsoft version for yes, I should be able to run it, or no, I should be able to run it. And then coming out of that, you can see we just have a little arrow that goes over here that says, hey, we're going to look at that return code. It's as simple as that. Execute the PowerShell command, evaluate the return code. If the return code is 0 here, then we're going to take the action called set the environment variable, right? So the environment variable here is going to say create the environment variable. Really, it doesn't matter what you call it. We called it win11 cap. It doesn't matter what you call it. Just be consistent as you go through this, right? There's not an existing one. We're kind of inventing this out of thin air, so it's up to you to decide what that looks like. So we're going to drop that 0 and 1. That's a little bit more confusing for some people. So we're going to swap it with the value of true. Win11 cap true versus if we went down the other side and we failed the test and it came back as as a return code other than 0, we're going to set that value to false. So true and false. Now I've got an environment variable that just says, hey, if you are compatible, it's going to be true. If you are not compatible, it's going to be false. Now what we can do is when we go into our device groups, we have the ability to create a device group and key it off of something. Well, what can we key it off of? Hey, why don't we key it off of that environment variable we just created? So I'm going to go in here to my manage group section and I'm going to scroll down here. We've already created it, so I'm just going to open this up. And I'm going to look at one called Windows 11 Readiness Pass. And it's pretty straightforward. Down here in the bottom, you can select the values, and it actually gives you a preview of the results down here in the bottom. So you can see it's pretty straightforward. Environment variable name contains win11 cap, and that environment variable is true. Obviously, that fail one that I've created is just the inverse of that. It's looking at the value of false. So now I can start understanding what's going on with my machines. Which ones are going to pass? Which ones are going to fail? I got a lot of them that are going to fail. I've got a lot of virtual machines and things like that that will fail because they don't have TPM chips and so forth. Oh, I actually clicked on pass again. Let's go back there and click on fail. And you'll see my list is going to be much larger here of all my different failures. Now, I need to run this bot on my machines in order for it to work. It can't just be a backend query as part of that. But you kind of already saw me do that when we opened it up. You would just go to the readiness section here and you can say, I want to run now. And then again, I could run it on just all my devices or a query that I already have that would say execute on those machines and then return the results. This needs to be done kind of ahead of time. This is the planning stage. You could do this today if you've got Neurons for DEX. Even if our upgrade's not planned, hey, we're going to pay for the extended support. We're not even going to think about it for a couple of years. No reason you can't get ahead of this and get that information data gathered at this point. So that's one way to do it. Again, we've got some other methods and so forth. And, storing at the registry, there's some other values as well that you could potentially do. All right, so now let's determine, hey, your machine is upgradable. Now what? What are some options that we have? Again, back to that concept around DEX. I really encourage you to start thinking it from the user's perspective. Start understanding how they feel when we interact with them. So we came up with a method that I think is going to be a pretty polite way, in my opinion, in order to do that. Now, one of our bot actions that we can take is we can actually interact with the user via Teams. And I think it's just absolutely super cool, right? Teams is incredibly prevalent these days. Most of our users are using it out there, and we have native integration inside of it. We could integrate with other chatting platforms. It would just require a custom integration, whereas the Team ones is just right there. So this one's kind of, if you're a Team shop already, we can drop this in with a couple of hours worth of effort versus maybe other ones might take a couple of days worth of effort. So in one example, here's what we would do. we would actually go and we would run a survey, a separate bot. Now that the readiness is done, we would take the results of that, and all the people that are as pass, let's say it's 6 months later, I'm actually ready to do the upgrades. And I want to take them, in some chunks. I don't necessarily want everyone to do it at the exact same time. I don't want just people to be surprised. They wake up Friday morning and they've got a new operating system and the start bar's in a different spot and everything's different and none of it's better, my personal opinion. But, do you think they're going to call up Microsoft and blame them? They're going to blame us, right, for making their interface look much, much worse. So why don't we do this? Why don't we reach out to the user and give them an option? Even if it's just an illusion of option, people love to be able to feel like they're in control. So here with this, you can see what I'm going to do is I'm going to show them buttons. I'm going to ask them which date they prefer. And it really doesn't matter. I'm making it up here. I've just given some examples. Oh, do you want November 20th? You want November 27th? You want December 1st? I've given the user 3 options. They can't click cancel. They can't click no, and I can have it default to whatever date I want. I could put some logic in that says, if you don't pick a date, I will pick this date for you. That's, we can have that logic be created. But then they are presented with buttons. You can kind of see it over here on the upper right-hand corner. And they are choosing the date. They're controlling their own destiny, right? They're choosing, oh yeah, November, whatever as part of that. And then what we're going to do with that is the same kind of thing. Let's go back and take a look at how that bot would potentially work. Let's go, I'm going to close out of this. Let's go back to our bots. Let's look at that one that is called the survey here. So as part of this, if we edit this version, you're going to see, again, we're just using those environment variables. They're a great way to have persistence on the machine. It's a longer conversation. We have plenty of variables and inputs at the bot level, but sometimes that might not last, right? If I need to run a upgrade readiness 6 months before, those variables are not necessarily viable to be used as part of an upgrade. So storing it with the machine just has some easy benefits. It's kind of an easy button for us. So there, we're just going to store a variable. Again, we made it up, so don't look for this in your existing systems. This was just fabricated out of, our own configuration. A couple of our bot experts that we had, Jaron and Robert, did a lot of work kind of running through this and testing different scenarios and so forth. So they just said, hey, when update, they've created that as an environment variable. We then set that variable based on the team's interaction. And you can see you don't have to do a lot of work. We've done most of the work for you. We're going to say, okay, type in the title of the message here. Here's the actual message. And then we want interactive. We have like some text input, but in this case, buttons are going to be a better use case for it. So now we show some buttons and we present them with the buttons of the 3 dates that I have chosen. We can get way more complicated with some things around, again, variables at the bot level and things like that. This is a very simplified version. No, I just gave you 3 dates, and this is my, quarter 4 update. When I roll over into quarter 1, because I'm not going to do everyone at the same time, I just go and update these and pick the new dates and, kind of go from there. So now we have landed not just a variable that says that you are ready to be upgraded to Windows 11. We've also landed a variable of what date is your preferred date to be able to do it. Once again, we do the same thing. We just create a device group now based on that and using that same kind of logic. So if we expand it out here, I've only got one, but here's my Windows 11 deployment group for November 22nd. It's 27th. It's simply going to take all of the users that pressed that button and said, yes, the 27th is my preference, and I can do it. So now I'm all teed up and ready to go to actually make it happen, right? We've queued it up really well. So let's jump back over and talk about, let's go to actual action. What do I actually do to make this happen? So we've asked them to pick their dates. They've now chosen November 27th or whatever, or December 1st, or, doesn't matter. We would then go and say, I actually don't show that next. So let me just talk about what we do in the next step. I thought I had a slide on it, but I was wrong. Let's simply go find the right window. That's the important part. Let's talk about the upgrade itself. So I'm going to open up this bot right here. So doing the actual upgrade is going to be a little bit more specific to your use case. So take what I'm about to say in the next steps as general guidelines, not perfect answers, right? So just kind of, follow that qualification. Now, first of all, what do? You download the actual installer. Now, it's a little bit obnoxious. It's actually an ISO that you're going to get from Microsoft, right? Why in the world, in today's day and age, we still are so stuck with formats that were associated with CD-ROMs. It's the same reason that we got that floppy disk save icon, you know, that skeuomorphism, but in this case, it's just simple. Hey, we haven't updated the universe. We just said we're going to use the old ISO methodology as part of that. So we need to do a couple more steps for that. Like, for example, download it. And if you went and found this, it's just going to be a zip file that I'm downloading from. Now, it's a little bit more complicated on where we're going to download that zip file from. There's some big arguments on how that would work. And again, that's why I said it really depends on your implementation. You could put it on a public web server. You could put it in Amazon S3 bucket like I have. You could put it in Azure Blob. You know, lots of different strategies. But I don't think you're going to find a huge amount of publicly available, hey, I'm just going to go right from the manufacturer. You know, oftentimes they put limits and so forth on it, or you've got to click, I accept this license agreement in order to download it. So you may need to go grab that and then distribute it that way. Also, an ISO is not a fantastic format, in my opinion, to get around. So what we've done is we've actually just said, hey, let's go and we are going to turn it into a zip file. So we're going to extract that ISO, or it's technically not extracted because ISO is not a compressed format, right? It's just we are going to take that folder contents of that ISO and we are going to compress it. If we're going to be having to download this to, you know, bazillion machines, we might as well save ourselves a little bit of time, because look, we've got an action over here on the left-hand side called uncompressed file folder. You don't need to understand how the unzip command works. You don't need to write a script in order to unzip it. You just go over here and say, grab the uncompressed folder. If you just typed it for a search up here at the top. I found the search better. It's kind of hard to look through this list. I mean, we've got 79 of queries and 71 actions. So I think it's just easier to search. So, you know, I would go and say uncompress, right? The only downside to that is I would not have thought they would have used the word uncompress. I would have thought they would have said unzip, right? So it's a little bit more nuanced. You got to know what the name is. But I just drag this out there, and then I can use that as an action. So here we go. We've got that Win11 zip. We're simply going to extract it to this folder. We've put it on the C drive, Win11temp. Again, your situation might be a little bit different if you got the space and permissions and blah, blah, blah. And all these things need to be in place. And then down here at the bottom, you can see we've got this PowerShell action that we have the ability to run as the system account. The user almost certainly does not have the rights to be able to upgrade to Windows 11, but the system account essentially always does. So this PowerShell script right here, same thing, we're going to go put some links down in the recorded video for this, but this is not created by us or created by Ivanti. Geez, just go Google it, right? You'll find 3 or 4 scripts out there from different people. They operate in a little bit different fashion, so you're going to have to kind of play around with it a little bit. But notice it's just going to talk about, it runs the setup command right there that was in our extracted folder. So you're going to have to pay attention to that, to where you extracted it to, and then make sure that where this script tells it to point to there. But then just after that, it runs through the process, right? So that's, you know, in reality, that's actually not that difficult. Look at that. There's very few actions that we're creating here in terms of doing this. Setting a couple of registry values that are required as part of that. This, don't look too close. What does that say? It says run without unsupported TPM. This is that hack we were talking about. So, you know, look up the hack for sure, because testing is 10 times easier in a virtual environment, because you can take snapshots, you can revert, you can do all that kind of logic, right? So this is me cheating, and I support cheating in the lab. That's perfectly okay. But then eventually you'd want to roll it out without that cheat to roll it out without TPM. So you could probably just unzip and go right into the installer, you know, as part of that. So this gives us the ability to kick off that install. That's kind of it. I know that's a little bit of a weird anticlimactic moment, but just run that setup with this script and you'll be Windows 11 as soon as it finishes. And I'm 99% certain this automatically reboots as part of that, because it even talks about it in there. But you know, we'd want it to automatically reboot and come back up, and away we go. So that's a great way that you can go and execute the script with the bot. And then now to kind of roll it all together, all of those preparatory steps we've done up until this point, I can simply go and say, yes, I would like to run this. And I would go and say, I'm going to run it on that group that I've created, in this example, on, you know, November 27th as part of that. So now I go and execute that on November 27th, and all of the machines that were chosen to do on November 27th are going to receive that, and they're going to be upgraded. So That's one way to do it, right? A little bit more automated. We've done that readiness and so forth. But we've got a couple other, options up our sleeve, because that's not going to work for everyone, right? That was just one example. I like a little bit more ad hoc as well. So what if I'm, interacting with my users and they give me a phone call and I've got to fix their printer or whatever, right? So here I am looking at one of their machines. There's a very good chance that if I want to spread out that implementation, this is a much easier way to do it, or even just preemptively go and try and tackle these devices ahead of time. And what it is we have the ability to create, if we go back over here and take a look at our bots real quick, we'll do that while that's loading. But the concept is your bots don't have to be scheduled. They don't have to be run essentially from the bot screen here by choosing a date and a time. We have the ability to create what's called a custom action and to create a trigger for that custom action. And the concept is a technician who maybe received a phone call from that user has a single button to say upgrade to Windows 11. So, oh, you're welcome for fixing your printer or whatever. Hey, by the way, we've got a Windows 11 upgrade coming up. Are you ready to accept it now? If so, I can push it out to you right this minute, right? So a user would then, if they said yes to that, we could go over here on the custom action section. And if we scroll down, it's way down here at the bottom, there's a Windows 11 upgrade. So it gives us the ability, oh, I'm standing in front of it, but it's right there, right? I would just press that play button, walk away, and the machine would then go and get upgraded to that device. And there's some other tweaks on that, right? You probably saw I created a bot called Dry Run. You could also have it be preparatory, because in reality, you combine two things that take time. Downloading a big ISO and executing the ISO. Why not break those up into two functions? Let's get the installer out there way ahead of time. You could push that out months in advance for all I care. Might take a little while to trickle down to that machine. Fine, whatever, I don't care. And then later we go and execute it. So breaking it up into two functions, downloading is one function, executing is another function. That's a fantastic way to maybe have a little bit more scale associated with it. I've created this dry run that kind of does that very thing. I just went and said, hey, you know what? I don't want to commit to the upgrade right now. So I went in here and I just said, hey, I'd like to clone this. I want to clone my bot, and then I want to just simply go and kill that last step of execute. I want to do everything until that last actual execute. And then, that can be left off the process. Gives me a great way to test it. I could run it on a bunch of machines, see if it's downloading, get the files out there, and then at a future date, decide to do it. And you could do even much fancier stuff like check to see if the installer's there first, and then download it if it's not. Another way you could potentially do that is part of our app distribution. So app distribution is, back in the day we used to call it software distribution, right? But we got to brand it with the new fancy name, app. So app distribution says I want to create an install of a piece of software. That could be 7-zip or Adobe Acrobat or kind of whatever. Well, Windows 11 upgrade can actually be one of those things, because we already described it. It's not really a patch, it just kind of runs an executable. So you can see the same kind of logic. App distribution works in a very similar way. I drag out these different steps. I just don't have maybe as many of them, as many queries. But what's great about this is, again, I can have it be that ad hoc style where a technician would just press it and it would go and execute it. But also, I could have this show up in the brand new software portal. This is a brand new feature. I think it only came out of maybe a month ago or so. But where the user would actually pull up their software portal on their machine. Oh, do you want Adobe? Do you want WinZip? Do you want this? Oh, they could have Windows 11 upgrade right there. And they would just go press that button. So that's another option at our disposal in order to go and get that out there. Okay, let's jump back. I've got a couple of other things I want to talk about before we wrap it up. And that is, here's that ad hoc customer interaction where a technician would press that button. Let's talk about some of the downsides. Let's talk about some of the issues you're going to potentially run into when you get to that. Inventory is slow. And I apologize, it's sometimes days slow. When we run those readiness scripts we talked about, where we store it in environment variables, it is very confusing on when that should be updated. You would think, oh, it's going to show up right away. Nope. It's going to show up after an inventory scan. Sometimes. It is a big delay behind the scenes. I've talked to product management. We've talked to support. I don't have a straight answer on why. So readiness, you got to be patient, and I'm talking about days worth of patience associated with that. Get those readiness scripts out the door weeks/months in advance anyway, so it's probably not a big issue. but just, you got to pay attention to it. Edge intelligence is online only, and so that can lie to you. It can just give you a false sense of what's going on. It's got some fantastic features, but this is a big drawback associated with it. If I come up here and search for who has Windows 11, it's not going to search for the devices that are currently in the status of offline that we could have down here at the bottom. So Edge Intelligence is maybe not a great tool for this. It gives you a false sense of security. You do it at 2 o'clock, you're going to have different results than if you do it at 9 o'clock. So, just kind of keep that in mind. Smart advisors aren't always that smart. Be careful. There's a smart advisor that talks about the operating system that will not give you accurate results. So just please don't use that. Let's use some of the other things like device groups. They're going to be much more accurate at giving an accurate representation of the results. And then lastly, I would argue that this upgrade is a kind of a fire and forget. We execute it, and then who cares? Not our problem, whatever, right? We don't check that the machine rebooted healthily. We don't understand and interpret error codes much. I mean, you can go and add that kind of logic, but in my example script, I just said, nope, there you go, run setup.exe, and then drop the mic and take off. Well, that's probably good enough for most of the time, but we just need to understand that there's some nuance in there, that it is kind of a fire and forget. You want to maybe build extra logic into it, or run some device groups, or check device groups. Remember that device group we created for upgrades on November 27th or whatever? Check it the next day on who didn't get upgraded. We may need to understand failures that were part of that, or they shut the computer down. I'm sorry, I don't have a magic device that remotely powers on computers remotely. It could fail, right? And so there's some logic we have inside of bots where we can hit them when they power back on, but it's no longer November 27th. Is the user complained that we're going to, they didn't power back up till December 1st and we did it on the wrong day? Just things that you've got to think about and understand. So just, kind of keep those in the back of your head. Okay, that was a quick run through of what I want to talk about around bots, Windows 11, etc. I think we come back over here, and first of all,
look at that.
I wasn't paying attention. How many donuts were before? Maybe someone needs to comment on how many there was.
That's the exact same number.
Now, did you purchase with your Grubhub credit donuts as well, and they were just replaced?
I ate my 6 individually already.
Okay, just that's what I thought.
No, I saw myself on camera and decided I'd better stay away from the donuts.
Hey, what do they say? The camera adds 10 pounds? Well, donuts also add 10 pounds.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, if we've got just a minute or two, we did have a couple of generic questions.
Yeah, absolutely. If I'm allowed to eat a donut during it.
You're really going for a second one. Okay.
I put in a lot of work standing up there and rambling. It takes energy to do that. I'll be on donut number 2.
You deserve a second donut.
Okay.
There was a question about Slack. I assume I wasn't here. I might have missed the context. Is there a bot for Slack? I assume
there's not.
Question.
Yeah, there's not. That's most likely the question. So I said, hey, look at our great Teams integration. It's built in, takes an hour to set up. We do not have Slack integration. And so that would require some custom configuration. Absolutely possible, but not out of the box. So the out of the box Teams is, I don't know, an hour or 2 in order to set up. Custom Slack integration might be 3 or 4 days in order to do it. So yes, it can be done. However, it would require custom integration. I'll give you my personal opinion, not the opinion of NCSI or Ivanti. I unfortunately think that the race is over for that, and corporate America has selected Teams as the de facto standard, and I don't envision a lot of integration with additional chat software in the future, but that is just my personal guess on what the future holds. Yeah. We can always hit up Ivanti and pressure them if there's enough market demand. They should come back and respond. But I personally haven't seen enough market demand for them to make a big change.
To your point, rarely do we run into a customer or prospect that is not using Teams as their corporate standard.
Yeah. It's love it or hate. It's Microsoft, right? Does anyone love their products, for the record? Anyone? They don't win from love. They don't win from great technology. I don't know how they win, but they do.
Yeah.
And
Okay. The other question was. I guess there's a lack of good documentation on building bots. Do you have a secret resource or anything? I actually hit up Robert, and I thought maybe he would provide something.
I do. That's the secret resource. His name's Robert, and Jaron, a couple of our guys. Yes, I would agree that documentation is a little bit lacking. We've been trying to kind of supplement that with creating videos on how to do it. Here's my real request. I feel that we live in a little bit of a bubble here. I don't work on the help desk. I don't listen to users on a day-to-day basis. I ramble into a camera, right? So I don't know what the real world is like. So my big request is to you, tell me the kinds of bots you want created that are not made up. I make up these weird scenarios thinking, oh, disk space this and profiles that and Windows 11 upgrade. Maybe I'm totally off the mark. That's totally okay. Give me the feedback on the kind of bots you want to create. We will then go do the research to create them, to understand them, to figure out the back-end logic, and then we turn them into videos we put on our YouTube page that says, here's how you create this bot, right? So I know that's not a absolutely great answer. It's not documentation, but it could be a way to have everyone kind of benefit from that. Everyone can now understand how to create those bots. So drop them in the chat, send us an email, comment on the YouTube page, whatever, and we'll help create those bots, because everyone benefits at that point. One thing I've been advocating with Ivanti is that we need to have a marketplace. You made an awesome super bot that does this, you need to be able to go hit publish and let everyone else see it, right? And it's not that they're opposed to that idea, it's just, it's a priority system, right? You know, where does that live on the priority list? It's just not at the top of the list right now. But there's also on the templates page, there's a feedback button on saying how these bots work and so forth. You can use that. So apologize, I don't have great documentation. Hit us up, we'll try and create those bots and then just disseminate it through videos and other kinds of things like that.
All right, perfect. And that goes for additional information on anything we shared today. If you want a little one-on-one conversation with us, absolutely follow up. We can spend a little bit of time with one of our engineers or even Brian if he's available, and we'll see if we can get you some answers.
Absolutely. All right, well, thanks everyone for attending. Same exact concept around this content in these webinars. We are essentially guessing at what people want to hear and talk about. But if there are important topics, if we need to follow up to this, if there's more specifics, please give us that feedback. We love to hear from you on which direction we should go. So we're not just rambling about nonsense that's not really relevant to your use cases. So please give us that feedback and we'll do our best to create content around that. Hopefully your Grubhub stuff worked. Again, if you're having any issues, make sure to hit up that email address and we'll get you sorted out. But otherwise, appreciate everyone attending today.
Thanks everyone. See you next month.
All right, see ya.